Thank you. Thank you very much, Mikhail. I'm just going to give a context as to where we are with the Jamaican economy. We have had an incredible 10 to 15 year period where we have halved our national debt from about 140% to now 68 and trending downwards. And that has been a national effort started by Portia Simpson Miller and Peter Phillips when we came back into office and has continued. It's important to note where it started. It's like a relay, but the heavy lifting started with us. But it's been a necessary but not sufficient condition. The Jamaican economy since independence has grown on average 1% per year. The data that the PIOJ put out yesterday indicated that for the first quarter of 2025, we grew by 0.8 of 1%. The projection for the next 3 fiscal years is 1% growth. That can move the economy forward, that can lift living standards, and that can provide the resources and the tax revenues to provide the social services that all Jamaicans need. So what do we plan to do differently? And we have a 4E plan. On education, the party leader has already spoken extensively about that. So I'm going to go to next, energy. It's impossible for us to grow our economy at when the cost of energy is as high as it is. We are paying on average about US 40 cents per kilowatt hour. Important to note, when we left office in 2016, we were about 23, 24 cents. Now, a lot of people we measure corruption by how much them thief, and these people have stolen a lot. But we don't measure corruption by the destruction of institutions and the impact it has on our sector. So the reason we have high energy costs is not just, it just happens so. It's because the government has really done very little over the 9-year period to bring down the cost of energy. So when we were in office, we had issued requests for proposals for renewable energy. That was in 2013. That led to the build out of new solar farms, the expansion of Wigton, which ultimately is the only way we can bring down the cost of energy because we import heavy fuel oil and LNG. It's taken the government 8 years to put out additional requests for proposals to add new renewable energy to the grid. And those companies were selected last year, and the build-out will probably take another 18 to 24 months. And so that build-out will happen when we are in office. But you can't bring down the cost of energy when you take 8 years to issue an RFP. You have to be doing this every 2 to 3 years. And so our commitment is to bring down the cost of energy by ensuring that we add renewables to the grid, but also to look at the JPS license and to make changes to how it operates. There's something called net billing where you get a license if you generate your own electricity by solar or wind and you sell back to JPS. The rates that are given to individuals and companies are woefully inadequate and don't provide an incentive for persons to participate. We have to revisit that. We have to look at something called wheeling, where if you're a business with multiple locations, you can provide, if you can generate energy in one location, you can provide it to your other locations. We have to ensure that our special economic zones, that players in the special economic zones can generate and provide their own electricity. We also have to deal comprehensively with the issue of electricity theft, which adds about 20% to our electricity bills. We started a program back in 2014. It really didn't continue, again, mainly because of the corruption. They had to close down Nessal after them thieved that up and corrupted it. And so the level of investment needed to rewire houses, install prepaid meters, that wasn't done. They have now announced a program that they're going to try to do what really should have been done over a long period of time. So the second E is energy, and Philip Paulwell, who transformed our telecom sector, has really given a lot of thought and effort into what we will do when we get back into office. And it also impacts cost of living, because if I ask you what is the largest bill that you pay, it is going to be your electricity bill. The third E relates to efficiency. Government is the largest player in our economy. And what we've seen over the last 3 years is that this government has been unable to spend what is called the capital budget. You have two types. You have your capital and your recurrent pays salary and other expenses. Your capital goes to building new roads, hospitals, etc. In fact, last year, they underspent the capital budget by $19 billion out of a capital budget of about 50. We are committed to making government more efficient in what is called the public investment management system. So it doesn't take 2 years for a project to go through that evaluation to determine whether you go ahead. I think it took them 3 years to make an assessment on the Troy Bridge before work could start. You can't run an efficient economy that way. We're also going to look at the procurement system while preserving the integrity of the system to ensure that we can get projects out more quickly. Because if government can't spend its own money, it impedes the level of growth that you can have. And one of the biggest impediments to growth is how this government has structured itself, with the Prime Minister at OPM and as Minister of Economic Growth having control of the largest chunk of ministries, agencies, and departments, which has created a bottleneck where simple approvals have to go to the Prime Minister's desk. And so projects are held up for inordinate periods of time, simply because one person has to sign off on them. So efficiency is an integral part of how we plan to move forward. We recognize that for any economy to grow, businesses need access to funding. And we have seen the nature of the banking sector in Jamaica is that it's dominated by the two large banks who control about 70% of the market. So just 2 days ago, the Bank of Jamaica reduced its interest rates by 25 basis points, which would represent the 5th reduction in the last year and a half. So they have reduced interest rates collectively by about 125 basis points. But there's been no movement from the banks. No movements, not on your mortgage, not on loan rates. And we can't grow the economy if businesses continue to pay the very high rates for capital. Now, we can plead, we can beg, we can beseech, but government plays a role. The government has access as the single largest player in the economy in terms of the deposits that are held in these institutions. We're saying we're going to implement a system where those deposits don't automatically go to the two largest banks, but we have a mechanism where there's equitable distribution of those deposits. Because even if new players enter the market, once the two largest players who control the market have access to those deposits, then there's no incentive to respond to the Bank of Jamaica when they reduce interest rates. And even, something I propose, there was some pushback and criticism, but the Ministry of Finance just 2 weeks ago issued a request for a proposal to examine a system that will ensure that we have more equitable distribution of government-held deposits, which should increase the competitiveness of the banking sector so that the banks can be more responsive to movements in the policy rates. We have also made a commitment that we will eliminate over a 5-year period the asset tax, which has been a burden on banks and which was introduced initially because we had to run a very high fiscal surplus in the 2012-2016 period, but the current government has maintained. So efficiency is a central part of what we plan to do. Our fourth E relates to our emerging economies. And the emerging economies really revolve around our cultural and creative industries, the types of industries that have made Jamaica punch way above its weight. Or musicians, or artists, or painters, or potters, or athletes, all of them who contribute significantly to brand Jamaica, but who earn significant sums of foreign exchange. It's a very informally organized industry. we are going to establish a fund of $1 billion that will support the cultural and creative industries. We're going to provide the support in terms of not just funding, but helping people with their business plans, converting ideas into a business so that they can grow those businesses. And we'll provide the technical support as well to help those industries. So we're looking at industries that can provide the platform for growth. The cultural and creative industries is one. Agriculture, but I'll leave Dayton to speak to that. Logistics. Jamaica is ideally located that when you come out of the Panama Canal, we're the first country that you hit, and then we can act as a port for many different things. Transshipment, legitimate transshipment. We do other forms of transshipment, but legitimate transshipment, but also for value-added manufacturing, for assembly of different components in electronics, etc. Ship repair, which is now taking place. So there are a number of industries that we can develop, and there was a logistics master plan that was developed when we left office, but hasn't really been implemented. And those are the kinds of jobs which are going to be the high-tech jobs where people can earn good salaries and will want to stay in Jamaica. Because Jamaica, and Peter Bunting said it, we are stuck in a low wage, low productivity, and low growth model. And we will never be able to move out of that unless we tackle the inequities in our education system, which our leader has spoken to, tackle the inefficiencies that structurally exist in the economy, and identify and provide support for those sectors which provide the opportunity for real growth. We are committed to it. We have spent a lot of time looking at what needs to be done once we get into office. And we are confident that we can move our growth rate from the 1 and 2% to 4 and 5 and 6%, earn the tax revenues that are needed so that we can improve our health, our education, our public transportation, and all the other sectors which are critical to the kind of economy that we want to create, where all Jamaicans feel comfortable to live, do business, and bring up their families. Thank you very much.